Oh no! I don't get it. It's okay. We get it.
I was like, yes, Lord, come on with the cancellations.
Ooh, we going in and now just kidding.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm black. Am I good?
He's with the best of them, and he's one of my favorite men to come emphasize.
that entrance sounds like much more than who I actually am.
My guest of honor received a biochemistry degree from Texas Women's University, a master's in finance from the University of St. Thomas, and he's a life member of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. He's a digital content creator that understands the importance of storytelling and documenting the journey. He's the co-founder of Bidspot and the founder, owner, operator of Intelliship trucking company. He's on a mission to educate others on how to grow and become profitable in the transportation world. Today, my guest of honor is Marty, and he loves trucking. How you doing, bro?
What is good, my good sister?
Nothing much. Just trying to do what God telling me to do. That's what we've been doing.
Hey, I just want to say that you call me the guest of honor. I'm always honored to be your guest because you're my big sister. So whenever you give me that call, I make myself available for you.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. That's love. That is definitely love to me.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, I want to start off by just pretty much laying down the foundation. And I want people to be able to trace your footsteps in the sand. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and where you're from? Like start with the basics.
Ooh, so let's take it back. So I'm an 88 baby. Is that back enough?
80s baby,
so,
87 for me,
So 80s baby, born and raised in the DFW area. For those that are from that area, I'm from Arlington, Texas, aka the Ag Town. Grew up in a Nigerian household. I am a third generation business owner. I just found out, and I'm very easygoing. I like to have a good time. I like to smile, as you can see, and everything is about, improving your quality of life and doing the things that speak to you and, knocking out the rest that don't matter.
That's absolutely true. And I heard you talk about your family, and I wanna ask you a quick question about your foundation when it comes to what they've instilled in you. What would you say are the greatest characteristics and gifts that your parents or your family has given you?
Ooh, so I would say the will to power through and understanding that nothing in life is easy. Nothing that is worth anything is easy. Education has always been, top of the list. Also, taking care of your loved ones and not necessarily taking care of them in the monetary sense, but making sure that we don't hustle backwards.
Yeah.
And that, what was, laid in the previous foundations, we're supposed to be building on top of it, not taking away from, what was set there for us to move forward.
Yeah. Look, and that goes right into what the theme of this season is. It's like thinking long game because our family gives us that foundation, and then it's up to us to take the baton and keep running. So based on everything that you've been doing so far, you've gone through a biochemistry degree for one. That's massive in itself. And then you went on to do finance. But can you tell me like what kind of sparked your interest there and made you choose those two things to start off with?
Yeah. So funny story. I actually didn't want to do science.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when you grow in a household full of accomplished people and you're, the first generation son of immigrants, you got to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, nurse. I didn't want none of that, to be honest with you. I was just kind of like faking it for a long time. I realized probably about halfway through my program that I didn't want to do biochemistry, but one of the things that my parents taught me was, if you start something, you finish it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I merely finished it out of an obligation at that time, I felt like, to my parents. But business has always been something that I've always been interested in. I've always had a love for. It's just a matter of, where my niche was going to be once I got into that arena.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're willing to admit that you didn't want to do it, because a lot of people and a lot of students they do a lot of things because someone told them that was the best path for them, or they feel like even college is the best path because somebody said that's the only path. So I love that you've been influenced by, your family to understand that business is an option, or you've been exposed enough to know that business is an option as well. Um, so tell me how you use both your degrees in your life now when it comes to what you're currently working through.
Well, on the chemistry end, not much.
Not much.
It was one of those things where I will admit that I did work at Frito-Lay for about 6 months.
Hmm.
I had an amazing time, but when I was working in the labs, I was actually sneaking off to the business side of the campus. So I had a mentor, Kent Montgomery.
Hmm.
He was at the time vice president of sales and marketing, old school Kappa. Okay.
Mm.
And like every waking moment during my workday, I would try and find my way to his office because I just wanted to hear, how's the business side of Frito-Lay? Like, what are you doing here? What's going on there? And he actually encouraged me to go to grad school and go get my master's. He was like, man, if you really want to do this, go get the degree that matters. But you know, on the finance side, that's been more heavy in terms of my business ventures, and also for the marketing side. A little background on St. Thomas. St. Thomas is actually a little bit more expensive than Rice in terms of tuition,
Yeah, that's expensive.
but I couldn't get into Rice because my grades are bad. So I had to get into the master program at St. Thomas. Actually, actually had to do a presentation to the dean of business,
Mm.
and basically sell her on why I should be admitted to the program. The guy who had bad grades and everyone else, they were just kind of like, yeah, you can kind of go along. So my early beginnings and even to this day has always involved sales. It's always involved business, marketing to some extent, and just being able to have the credentials to walk into any room and say, hey, I can speak this language very comfortably, but I'm still going to do what I do in the fashion that I feel is best.
Yeah. I would imagine that you having to sell yourself like that all the time, your identity and like the way that you had to like sculpt your identity may have shifted, or you may have felt like you wasn't sure about what your identity is because you had to sell all the time. So can you tell me like how they kind of impacted your quest to figuring out your identity?
Yeah, so it's a combination of you gotta you gotta be okay with where you are at that moment in your life. That's the first thing. The
Yeah.
second thing is you have to be faith based and understand that the things that you want aren't necessarily the things that you are destined to be.
Mhm.
Right? There was a quote that I heard the other day. God is always working on who you are becoming, and I fought with that for a very long time you know until I became a business owner, where like I had to be really comfortable with knowing that I'm not the guy who's gonna do 7 different side hustles. I'm gonna do trucking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk about grain, and this is the thing that I'm gonna be working on, and I'm gonna be okay in that space. So um, and I think the last thing was using the all of these skills that I had acquired over time and using that to my advantage. One of the first things that I noticed in the trucking business was everybody has a lot of knowledge, no one's willing to share it.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to claim that I was the first to do it, but within I guess my time period of being newer to the trucking game, I was okay with telling people, hey man, um, I drove today and I had a busted tire.
Mhm.
Right? I didn't make $20,000. I didn't, I didn't make $500,000 in my first year in trucking. No, none of that. I drove, I went from point A to point B. I had a busted tire. I had to fix that. I had to go deliver, and then I had to go to the next thing. And that's kind of been my mantra of, being truthful without divulging all of my business to the world.
Yeah, transparency is important, and not being a gatekeeper of information, because the fact that you're free flowing this information is you're planting seeds in other people, right? But it's also going to be fulfilling for you because you'll be able to see that in other ways, even though that's not the intention of you seeing it come back to you like that. You'll be able to receive that because you're planting the seeds as you go and as you build. Um, and I love the fact that you said pretty much you took the time to have deep roots. Like, I'm gonna do trucking, I'm gonna talk about grain. I'm gonna make it very simple because a lot of times we make life a little too hard and it doesn't have to be that difficult. It really
Absolutely.
doesn't. So tell me though, like, what role does God play in your life since we're talking about deep roots and being faith based?
Ooh, God's my CEO.
Yeah.
So he leads me. Um, Part of the journey of, again, being a small business owner is understanding that in order for you to be a good leader, you must be a good follower. And I think the greatest leader um, that we know that's been documented is God. He's the only one that he seems to make a way out of no way. He seems to put us in places and rooms that we didn't think was possible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I always say a prayer to myself every day. I ask God. Um, I don't know how to be a good business owner. I don't know how to be a good son. I don't know how to be a good brother. But please, grant me the wisdom to discern what is right and wrong so that I can become who you are intending me to be.
Yeah.
And so I kind of use that as my baseline every day to understand that um, gratitude takes you a lot further than being, volatile with your emotions. Just understanding that, things are happening for you, they're not happening to you. And so, in submitting that, God's my leader, it allows me to kind of do what I do, and that's, grow in the space that I'm in.
Yeah. Would you say that you have a set amount of standards, or would you say that that baseline is just what you grow from? Like the baseline of operating from gratitude. Do you have a set standard or extra points that are in your standards?
I would say today, gratitude is kind of my base. Aside from your regular business practices, you got to have your standard operating procedures. You got to make sure that you're doing good business with other people because your reputation is your marketing in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I like to aim to keep things simple every day
Yeah.
because the saying, simple scales, fancy fails.
Yeah.
And I just, life is just better when I operate with the bare minimum and kind of expand from that.
Yeah, simplicity is my lifestyle as well. Well, let's talk about the businesses because I mean, I'm very proud of you for let me go and say that first. I'm very proud of you for taking up space because you can be exposed to what God wants you to do and still sit there. So I love that you're taking up space and occupying the space and doing it well and planting those seeds as you go. So tell me about Bidspot first, and then we'll go to your other business.
Yeah. So, if you'll allow me a moment, Bidspot and Intelliship kind of go hand in hand.
Okay.
Here's why. When I initially started the journey with Intelliship, the premise was actually to buy trucking companies at first.
Okay.
Until I realized that you don't buy trucking companies, you actually buy the contracts when they're selling in the open market. So I was like, well, I have the skill sets to go get my own business. I don't need to pay you know X amount of money to be able to do the same thing that I'm going to get around to doing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the early part of my journey in Intelliship, we were operating at a loss.
Mm.
So imagine getting $20,000 in capital and your bank account is negative 8,000 within 17 days.
Mm.
We had no idea how to navigate. We had no discipline at the time to say, okay, hey, what's going to be the best path forward in order for us to, be profitable? And that involved, going from box trucks to, to say, okay, well, maybe we'll do hot shot. Then it went to, okay, I need to get my CDL because that's the ultimate moneymaker. Like you can go far, but in order for you to sustain success, you need to have, the right tools in your toolbox. Fast forward to Bidspot, we'll probably say within the first 6 months, we realized, hey, we need to be profitable. We need to figure out a way to be able to work in the open market, to be able to find good paying loads, good paying contracts. And so Bidspot was birthed out of a need for us to be able to simply navigate and book profitable loads faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then that kind of took a life on its own, where there was no load as it pertained to general freight that I could not book pretty quickly. I was able to forecast and secure my revenue 2 weeks ahead of time.
Mm.
So if you can imagine, where you have, fuel, you have your travel costs, you have, repairs that happen on the road, to know that, hey, I'm going to have 5,000, 10,000, 15, whatever that number is, accounted for, provided that you take care of your business. It makes life a lot easier. And that's honestly how I've been able to stay in business going into my third year now.
Yeah. That's amazing. That, first of all, I want to ask too, since you're a co-founder with Bidspot, how
Mhm.
did you come across your partner, and like how did you choose who you were going to partner with?
Yeah. So Michael Laredo, he's the co-founder, and also the mad scientist, honestly. We've been friends since we were 13 years old. It started at our friendship and our business partnership started in the halls of Barnett Junior High. We were we were getting ready for all city competition. We were both playing euphonium at the time, and he kicked my butt
Mm.
at every single turn. Like he didn't pay me no mind, but we had a connection instantly that grew over a period of 2 decades, because we're competitive and
Mm-hmm.
we want to get better. Um, it wasn't until we started this journey in trucking that I actually came to him and I said, "Hey, man, I don't know how to be a good professional. This is the guy who he knows dang near everything about me, and he's been successful in his own right as an engineer, and as a thought leader in his space." I
Yeah.
came to him and I said, "Hey, I'm not good at what I do, so I need you to teach me how to get it." And that's how we started, the dream of Intelliship and therefore Bidspot.
I find it very beautiful to see men have friendships. To me, it's like a very beautiful thing, because a lot of times you don't have community. And a lot of times it's like, oh, I mess with him on that side, or I'll deal with him a little bit, but it's never like a continuation. And I also love the fact that you are able to humble yourself enough to be like, hey, I don't know how to do this, and I don't understand this. So can you teach me? That's a surrender in itself. And that's something that we do often. It's going to be a continuous thing that we have to do. Surrender, learn, reapply. Those different things. So I want to commend you on that for real, because you can't grow if you don't surrender, and you can't grow if you do not utilize your community and use what God has put in your hands. So I'm happy to hear that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I I think it's also interesting that when we talk about community, the same thing applies to blue and white, right?
Hmm.
Sigma and Zeta, and that um, we it's always amazing that no matter where we are, we can always call each other. We can always ask each other for advice, even if
Hmm.
we're not in the same space. Like, I know for a fact there are people on my phone, and I'll probably say the majority of them blue and white, that I can call and say, "Hey, man, I need this from you. Okay, it's done. Hey, sis, can you help me with this? Okay, it's done."
Hmm.
Or we may not even talk for a year and be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Hmm.
"I'm good. You want to meet up?" "Sure." And
Yep.
to your point, community it's everything.
It is. And it's all of, blue and white is the best. So I'm just gonna put that out there. But the only family, the one and only family. But it's a beautiful thing, because we were born to be interconnected. Like, we were created to be like this, interdependent on each other. So I think that whenever we do exude that, it makes our life so much easier, and then we see so much more fruit because we're better together. So
Absolutely.
I love that. So, but yeah, tell me about trucking and why you love it, or why is it something that you're pursuing?
Trucking started for me watching my dad go to work. He supported our family. He got his education, his bachelor's, master's, and PhD through
Wow.
transportation. He was able to afford us the opportunity to, go to college through transportation. And it was one of those things that I didn't want to give in initially,
Hmm.
but my heart has always been with transportation. Every time I saw a truck on the road, like, oh man, there goes another truck. Or, I would see, how does the economy move? Okay, well, you need transportation, be it, land, air, or by sea, right? Every the fabric, the culture, the infrastructure of America is built on transportation.
Hmm.
And if people don't believe me, go online and go order some off Amazon and see if you get upset if that package don't come within a day or two.
We tracking it.
So, but transportation's just always been a love for me. And I've, when we talk about when you are leaning into your gift, that's when money becomes a true byproduct, a scoreboard, as
Yeah,
opposed to, oh man, I gotta make this money. I gotta get this. I'm bringing the dough. I'm making six figures. It's like, no, when you're really good at what you do, you start seeing figures that you never thought you would see in your lifetime. And
true.
that's certainly the case now. Um, to keep things in perspective, it takes money to make money. But I think what's important for people to understand as we're kind of having this conversation is the real wealth is in your skills,
Hmm.
and understanding that if you hone your skills, you will have the requisite tools to be able to solve problems for other people, and eventually they're going to pay you anyway. So the money shouldn't be the focus. It's how can you help people? How can you be a steward for those who potentially have a problem that you can solve?
Absolutely. Because your gifts will make space for you. They always say that though. And but your character is what's gonna keep the door open. Like, to be honest. So I love that it's about solving problems and making sure that you are being of service. And it goes right back to being a servant leader and doing those deep roots all over again. It's just a cycle. It returns to you. Um so since we're talking about skill sets, if someone wanted to get into trucking, what would be your advice for that?
You got to be patient. You have to understand that you have to be able to work in conditions that are not ideal. So think about an NFL quarterback. Can you think of one that has the perfect situation?
No,
That's
especially not as
trucking.
a Cowboy fan.
That's trucking in a nutshell, right? And so the great ones understand, what their capacity is, and then also understanding what skill sets that they need to be able to influence others and to be able to grow a community, right? Any CEO, any president must prepare themselves to exit their business operationally,
Hmm.
meaning you cannot be the self-employed guy for a long time, or gal, and say, oh, I'm a business owner. No, sir, you are self-employed. You bought your job, and that's okay.
Hmm.
Um, but to be where you really want to be, you have to be able to fire yourself gradually,
Yeah.
from and be able to say, okay, hey, I'm gonna put trust in my process. I'm gonna put trust in my brand. I'm gonna put trust in um, being a leader and being a great follower too, to make sure that I have the ability to help someone feed their family. And that's always going to be an ongoing journey, whether you're at one employee or you're at, in some cases, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I want to ask you too, like, there's always a backside to the blessing. Like you just stated that you'll start seeing astronomical numbers that you weren't used to seeing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, what would you say is has been the way that you've been able to handle the backside of the blessing, where it wasn't always pretty, or that you see something that happens and then you have to recoup? So, what would you say would be your method for our mindset for handling situations like that?
You got to lose hard, and you got to lose often,
Hmm.
because losing creates appreciation for doing the little things every day.
Yeah.
Right? You can't worry about being a millionaire when you can't handle $100. You can't worry about being, that super wealthy, super flashy guy when you're not paying your bills on time, right? Or not fulfilling commitments that you put out there and that you set yourself up to do. Um, One of the other things in trucking is you have to be a really good listener, and you have to seek information from people, because no one owes you knowledge. You have to be humble and be gracious enough to say, hey, I don't know what I don't know. Can you please impart some knowledge? I never understood the guys who have been in the game for 10, 20, 30 years and they didn't share anything with anyone,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to be able to say, okay, I've been in the game 2 years, but I have the knowledge of one who has been there 10 years,
Hmm.
right? We shouldn't have to repeat the same lessons if we don't have to, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'll probably say the biggest contributor has been, I am quick to ask questions because I want to know. I want to avoid that situation, or rather, I want to make it better than how you experienced it, and be able to give transparency to people who are coming into the game. It's like, don't listen to these people that are telling you can make a quick lick. No,
Right.
trucking is a long game.
Yeah.
And whether you want to be, a carrier is what we call it, right? The ones who are actually being the truck drivers who are moving the freight, or if you're moving up the supply chain, like, you have to understand where you're trying to go and know that in order for you to get there, you have to take it one day at a time. You have to take it one load at a time. You have to take it, one emotion at a time. The name of the game is to stay alive for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah. I love the fact that you create content because that lives forever. Even when you're dead and gone, it's gonna still be here. People may roll up on your content and be like, I never knew all of this, or I feel like I can do something because I see all of these different situations that you speak to. So what made you choose to create the content though, or be as consistent as you are when it comes to your content?
Great question. So this goes back to my early days of being a neo. So if you remember, when I was at Texas Women's, no one, rather, I felt that no one gave me respect, and gave my chapter respect, because we're at a women's college. I'm a charter member. They're like, okay, well, you're not the UTAs of the world. You're not the, UNTs, the TCU, so on and so forth. So I had to, with my dean at the time, we had to stand out somehow, some way. We
Hmm.
couldn't get by with chapter history and saying we've been in the game 10, 20 years. Like, we had to make things shake now. That kind of started the foundation then, and my only regret that I have is that I was not confident enough and secure enough in myself to keep doing it.
Hmm.
And so when I started making content, as a trucker, I wanted to make it a point to not worry about getting views,
Hmm.
not worry about going viral. I just wanted to do the thing that I felt would give me a competitive advantage over time, which was just show up every day. Don't worry about how it looks, how it feels. It will
Hmm.
get better with time. The other thing that kind of motivated me was it would always frustrate me when I would apply for jobs prior to becoming a business owner, and they would say, "Well, your resume looks good, but you don't have the skill sets that you need or that we need for this role," and it would make me angry. So I said, "Okay, my greatest resume that I can do, that I can provide as a business owner, is to show the work. No one
Mhm.
can ever say to this day that I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm living it."
Yeah. Yeah, because it is a lifestyle. Like anything that you do, especially if you're talking about your gifts, it's gonna be exuded through the way that you live. Like it's gonna be natural. It's not something that you have to really try to do. I mean, yes, you do have to enhance your skill sets and like make sure that you're stewarding the gift well. But ultimately, it's your lifestyle. It's just gonna flow out of you. It's gonna ooze out. So yeah. Tell me how everyone around you, like that's in your inner circle, has kind of benefited from your overflow effect. Like how they benefiting from you becoming this person that you're becoming every day.
Oh, so my friends who thought about becoming business owners, I see more of them popping up now.
Yeah.
So that's been great. Again, I do not take credit for their decisions, but I would like to hope that I had some influence. Uh, the other thing is just seeing people be more comfortable with, talking about, their passions online, and being okay with not having to, deal with the norms and the standards set by everybody else, right?
Yeah.
I understand that, trucking is not a sexy thing to talk about. I understand that I'm going to lose, and I still lose followers on various platforms every single day because I'm obviously on there, like clockwork. You will see a post from me. The other thing is, with family, they have been my biggest fans, but also my biggest critics.
Yeah.
Uh, because when you're doing something that's not normal, that's not standard, there's always going to be some reservations. And I would say, aside from Michael being my business partner, my partner, me, she's been incredible for me because she allows me to do what I do, while also making it a priority that I stay present at home. Um, and just being able to have that level of balance with her motivates me to get better because, I selfishly, I want to spend more time with her. So, but those are the main things that, that I kind of keep focus on and I keep top of mind.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the fiance. I'm glad you mentioned her because that's where I was going next anyway.
Yeah.
um, it's so amazing to see people be in partnership because when you find your wife, for sure, everything in your life does get better. She takes what you give her and she multiplies it. So, can you tell me just with everything coming up, like how you're feeling about what y'all are gonna do in the future together. Like how is the legacy gonna grow just because y'all are joining together?
So I will say anyone that will have an opportunity to listen to this show, relationships matter because that's where the wealth resides.
Yeah.
You just mentioned it. The right partner multiplies you.
Hmm.
The wrong partner subtracts from you and often divides what you have. I am a better man today and going forward because of her. Not in spite of her, because of her. Um, there's a level of discipline that I have in my business because I have to have that level of discipline in my relationship.
That's right.
And and she will be the first to tell me if something's hot or if something's not. And and just having that level of communication allows me to say, okay, hey, what is it that we're really working towards? Is it we want to be rich? No. Is it because we want to have family? Sure. Is it because we want to equip our family with new tools to be successful? For me, that's something that's very important to me. For her, um, it's us being able to to have the life that we feel um, we can earn.
Yeah. It definitely changes the game for you. And all of those things, they say that your partner is like the mirror. And it's like stuff you didn't even know that you had to fix. They're going to illuminate that. And you could be like, oh, I didn't know that was there. Okay, cool. But okay, so is there anything that you would like to talk about that is on the horizon that you want to publicize or anything of that sort? Or is there anything that you want to speak to?
So I'm really big on partnerships. I love having these, podcast interviews. So uh, I'm very intentional about meeting people and saying, hey, how can I bring what I do to the table and, and talk about it and encourage people to, find their gifts and find what they feel they can be consistent in. I also have some upcoming events where I'm going to be on a panel talking about Bidspot. I'm going to be talking about my journey in trucking. Um, you know, I would also say one of my big interests has been following King Solomon's business model.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting to me that um, when we talk about content, we talk about AI, we talk about marketing. If you really go back, all the stuff that we're doing now is biblical, and it's just been recycled
Yep.
over and over and over again. When we talk about content, um, King Solomon, I think it was documented that he had what was it, 3,000? It was like 3,000 pieces of content with um, 1,000 plus pieces of songs, something like that. Now, I apologize for my Bible
It's
guys,
okay. It's okay.
but um, I have an internal goal to create 3,000 pieces of content
Yeah.
because I want to see what the intention was and what was meant by King Solomon asking to be wealthy, wise, and more well known.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of going on that journey. I think right now I'm on 410 pieces of content right now, so I got a long way to go. But point being, I tried to apply those principles, and now what I'm seeing is my business is actually getting bigger because
Mm-hmm.
of the fact that I'm able to kind of use something that's already here and really apply it and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to follow this, and that's kind of been like um, my running project of sticking to that as much as I can.
Look, laying the foundation, saying it out loud, and writing it down and making it plain helps you to stick to the plan. So you having that goal is gonna help you to stay very, very consistent, and it's gonna continue to grow. Everything that you have pretty much is, God has His hands on it, so it's gonna grow. No matter what you do, it's gonna grow, and God is gonna bless it. So I'm super excited to hear that, and that you're using kingdom principles because that's what it comes down to, being consistent with God's word and executing on your end. So,
What about you? What are you focusing on?
oh, yeah. Well, I am very much so focused on helping student athletes from Texas to understand what it means to be an athlete from Texas. I want them to create a standard for what that means. So I want to be that life coach that helps them to define what the standards are, to understand their identity, and to also just create a plan of action so that when they go be on these platforms, it's not just because they play sports, it's because they have a bigger purpose and it's attached to God's kingdom. So that's what I'm working on, making sure I'm visible and sharing God's principles and making sure that I continue to create content and resources that help people simplify life.
I love that.
Thank you.
I love it.
Thank you. I'm working.
I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Because we Texas kids,
Yeah.
what do you love about this generation of athletes at the high school level, college level, and professional level?
Oh, I love that they're not afraid to use their voice. Like, I'll start with college. They've been exposed to us millennials, so I feel like we helped create these monsters. I really do. But I really love that they're not afraid to use their voice in their platform. They're gonna say what they're gonna say, even when sometimes they wrong. But I love that they're not afraid to speak up. Um, and when it comes to high school students, what I would say is like their raw talent is extremely beyond what we could ever imagine. Like, I'm like, how are you 7 feet tall? Like, how does this work? But their skill set is just so raw. So if they were to become really strong stewards in what they have, the sky is the starting line. I never say the sky's the limit for anybody that works with me. The sky's the starting line. Like, that's where we start and we shoot from there. But their skill set is just amazing. And if they just learn how to steward it well, it's up. Like, they can do whatever they want to do. And the fact that I would say the reason why I love working with student athletes the most is because they're the ones who are going to have the platform. And if I can help them, that one student, I will help the masses because that one student is going to be on the platform. So if we can make sure that they're well and good, they'll help make sure the rest of them are well and good as well.
Absolutely. And to add to that, what I love about seeing, this generation of student athletes is um, they are understanding, they're being forced to understand business earlier,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're aware of the famous athletes whose money went away
Oh,
very
yeah.
quickly, and with the introduction of NIL, which I think prediction, I think it's going to hit high school,
Oh, it's
Texas high
already
school.
starting. It's already started.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
I think I think what's really key right now is those of us who are able to mentor and to impart knowledge. I think there's going to be a bigger emphasis on learning business early, and not only learning it in school, but for the families, for the parents of the athletes.
Yep.
You have to understand business because you're going to have people coming, to your kid trying to throw money and throw all these opportunities, and they have to have the knowledge and the sense of mind to know that all money ain't good money, and
Absolutely.
that you got to keep the main thing the main thing. One person that comes to mind is the Manning family, right? There's been a lot of opinions thrown out there about Arch Manning not wanting to opt into the NCAA football game, but if you really take a step back and think about it, say, well, hey, the Manning name is worth billions.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is a simple opt-in, you don't want to give people access to you for $600,
Exactly. Yep.
and that's something that gets glossed over a lot of the time, which is, yeah, the money is great today, but can you build the discipline and the education to say, I'm willing to wait 10 years to achieve this thing, God willing,
Mm-hmm.
right? And see it through, because Arch Manning, by the time he becomes a first round pick, we're not going to be talking about $600. We're going to be talking about M's.
Yep. Yep.
We're going to be talking about Patrick Mahomes money,
Yep.
right? And so that's something that I'm kind of seeing and observing from afar.
And you hit the nail on the head because that's exactly what I'm focusing on as well. Like, sports families and as a whole, um, if you're not careful, you can pretty much derail your child's future just because you
Absolutely.
made a simple decision that you didn't think twice about. Even when it comes to preparing for life after sports, life insurance, different things like that you're not thinking about. I think that it's really important that we make sure that the parents are well equipped because they're the ones who are in the kid's ear every day. I would probably only see your child twice a week or once a week, but you see your kid every day. So if you have the right skill sets, you will be able to help your kid grow and to evolve. And that identity piece is the most important because if you understand that you have ownership in your process and in your life, it makes everything better. And if they don't think that they have ownership, they will sell themselves for a Kit Kat bar.
Quick.
Mm-hmm. But
Don't let this NIL money fool y'all.
because it's really not a lot. Like, you're really selling yourself short in some spaces. So having a standard for how you choose them and being attaching your name to certain things. I mean, you got to think about that. You can't just be out here signing. Just. But yeah, that's my passion for real, bro. I love that. But
Love that.
anyway, so as we wrap up, I just want to ask you, if you knew then what you know now, would you change anything?
No, I would not change anything. Absolutely
Good.
not. Um, what what I appreciate today, being a 35-year-old male, black male at that, is you. It's not about how fast you get access to things. It's about the maturity level to appreciate when you have it. And
Mm-hmm.
so I didn't have the maturity back then to appreciate what I have now. But because I have access to resources, I can actually work a lot faster today than I ever could have, prior to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate you, bro. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and the kingdom principles that you are following, because that's powerful in itself. And being a representative in the space that you're occupying, like, I'm very, very proud of you and very happy that you decided to come on and share with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you, sis.
Love you too. Love you
And
too.
and let's do this again.
We will do this. And next time we see, you're gonna have your own podcast too soon, but we just gonna leave that there.